In 2009, the Denver Broncos got off to a magical start. Under new coach Josh McDaniels, they won their first 6 games. On ESPN, commentator Tom Jackson called McDaniel one of the great ones. I still remember the shock and disdain I felt listening to Jackson. It must be how Nick Saban feels now when he walks into a quarterback meeting. This was probably before the time one could say small sample size on ESPN. And Tom Jackson isn't a numbers guy. However, Jackson is a football guy, and he should have seen the warning signs. In the first game of the season, Denver faced a 7-6 deficit late in the fourth quarter, as the offense could only muster 2 field goals against Cincinnati. From their own 13-yard line, Denver's Kyle Orton threw a pass up the left sideline. The pass got tipped by a defender before landing in the arms of Denver's Brendan Stokely, who rumbled into the end zone for a go-ahead touchdown. The play became immortalized as the Immaculate Deflection. Orton to Stokely. Maybe Jackson thought this duo would become the new Montana to Rice when he proclaimed McDaniels as one of the great ones. After their 6-0 start in 2009, the Denver Broncos finished the season 2-8. They missed the playoffs when they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, a 4-12 team, the last week of the season. Denver started the 2010 season 3-9. Coach McDaniels got fired. As a smart football fan, you know better than to make decisions based on a small sample size. But have you ever wondered why humans get fooled by randomness? It turns out that our brains have an uneasy relationship with randomness. The trait that makes us human can fool us when dealing with uncertainty. But first, let's show the fallacy of judging based on a small sample size with a simple experiment. Randomness plays a big role in football. Sometimes a tip pass lands in the hands of a receiver who scores a winning touchdown. Other times, the ball lands in the hands of a defender, ending the game. The outcome of a football game is not that different from the flipping of a coin. To show the fallacy of judging based on small sample size, let's use randomness to model the wins and losses of Coach Average. I'll tell you exactly how we did this experiment later. It was a fun time with middle school students. For now, you need to know that Coach Average has a 50% chance to win each game. In the experiment, Coach Average gets off to a hot start. In his first college season, he goes 10-3 and becomes the savior of the program. However, there is no coaching acumen in our randomness experiment. For each of these first 13 games, there was an equal chance for a win or loss. Because of the small sample size, you shouldn't judge Coach Average based on his 77% win percentage in 13 games. With more games, we start to see the skill, or lack thereof, for Coach Average. He goes 4-8 in his second and third seasons. After 50 games, he has a 46% win percentage, close to the expected 50%. The convergence of this win percentage towards 50% with an increasing number of games is the law of large numbers. This is the mathematical reason you should never make a judgment based on small sample size. The reason humans get fooled by small sample size is that we see patterns in randomness. Coach Average's record was produced from one of the randomness demonstrations I've done at the Summers Middle School in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I put a black and white chess piece in a bag, and I go around the room and ask students to draw one of the pieces from the bag. Before we do the randomness demo, I ask the students what they expect to see in a sequence of pieces pulled from the bag. In a typical result, the students expect the black and white pieces to alternate. The longest consecutive streak of the same color was 6, predicted by 2 of 12 students. In reality, randomness will produce more streaks than humans expect. For example, in the actual randomness demo discussed in the Coach Average results, the first 7 pieces pulled from the bag were black. These results from randomness cause problems for humans because we are wired to see patterns and streaks, as Daniel Bohr explains in his book, The Ravenous Brain. It starts with counting by 2 and 5 in the earliest years of grade school and culminates in the technology that puts a computer in your pocket. Humans have this remarkable ability to find patterns even though we can only hold 4 items in our working memory, the same number as a monkey. Bohr notes that this desire for patterns extends further than any survival instinct. Quote, "And we really are a decidedly strange species for actively seeking out games with patterns in them, when such activities seem to serve no biological function whatsoever, at least not in any direct way. It's as if we are addicted to searching for and spotting structures of information. And if we do not exercise this yearning in our normal daily lives, then we experience a deep pleasure in artificially finding them." End quote. That sounds like sports to me. However, this ravenous desire for patterns gets us in trouble when we look at random sequences. As an example, the students picked 9 straight white chess pieces starting at the 19th trial. They thought it was a magic trick. Humans not only find patterns, but then tell stories to explain them. This pattern searching also gets us in trouble with sports. Let me show you a drastic example. Ohio State entered the 2015 season as the nation's consensus #1 team. They had won the first college football playoff the previous year and had so many returning starters they needed to pick among 3 quarterbacks. In late November, Michigan State came to Columbus to play Ohio State, and it looked like an easy win for the Buckeyes. Connor Cook, the best quarterback in Michigan State history, would not play due to an injury. The markets closed with Ohio State as a 14.5-point favorite. This wasn't far from the 14-point spread the market set for this game in June. Then, the unthinkable happened. Ohio State played an awful game. The offense never tested a weak Michigan State secondary and insisted on running into a strong front 7. Michigan State won 17-14 on a late field goal. The next week, Ohio State traveled to Ann Arbor to play Michigan. The markets closed with Ohio State as a 1.5-point favorite, a drastic change from the 16-point spread set in June. There were reasons to deviate from the preseason spread. Michigan had shown improvement under new coach Jim Harbaugh. Ohio State had their struggles, like a 20-13 home win over Northern Illinois. However, a spread of 1.5 points in favor of Ohio State made no sense. Urban Meyer was the coach at Ohio State, and he had won 3 national championships. This was Urban Meyer before he became known for dancing with blonde co-eds late at night. This was Urban Meyer before he covered up domestic violence allegations on his staff at Ohio State. This was Urban Meyer before he coached the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL with the utmost kindness. Urban Meyer was one of the best coaches in college football, and the markets made a seemingly insane reaction to one game against Michigan State. Ohio State beat Michigan 42-13. Late September is the best time to talk about small sample size. As we progress through the first weeks of the season, our brains start to see patterns in 3 weeks of football games. There are so many teams like the Colorado Buffaloes and Miami Dolphins that we could discuss. However, one headline caught my attention this week. ESPN.com proclaims, "We drafted the right guy. Texans QB CJ Stroud makes history." The Houston Texans had an emphatic 37-17 upset win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The article noted that Stroud was the first quarterback in NFL history to do the following in his first 3 career starts: 900 passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. And leave it to a football guy to shower praise on the new leader of the team. Tight end Brevin Jordan said, quote, "We drafted the right guy. Man, he's a leader. He's a phenomenal player and a phenomenal guy with God-given talent. Dude, he's unbelievable." End quote. Wow, let's put Stroud in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right now. Instead, we can acknowledge that Houston was 0-2 heading into the game against Jacksonville. In addition, Stroud is a rookie throwing to these receivers: Robert Woods, an 11-year NFL veteran at the age of 31; Nico Collins, the third-year player out of Michigan, who has yet to have 500 yards in a season. Tank Dell, the third-round pick out of Houston. C.J. Stroud could become a great NFL quarterback. I have always loved the way that he throws the ball, and this is not because he never beat Michigan as a starter at Ohio State. However, Stroud has played 3 NFL games. Do not make the mistake of seeing patterns and telling stories based on a small sample size. My name is Ed Fang, and I'm proud to be the host of the Football Analytics Show. I hope you enjoyed this audiobookish with music episode. This episode was brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. This is a free service that strives to be 3 things. 1, valuable. 2, concise. 3, entertaining. Every week, I send out 5 Nugget Saturday, my curated list of sports betting tips, analytics, and humor. If you're looking for action on any given weekend, this is the free service for you. To sign up, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting information based on data and analytics. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com.